Howdy folks, Tex here. Welcome to Southern Belle Bigfoot. Let me introduce y'all to a great friend of mine, Selena.
Hey y'all, I'm Selena. I started this channel because I had my own encounter, and I know what it's like to be ridiculed and unable to share my experiences. I want to give everyone a safe haven to share their encounters with these magnificent beings. I love to hear yours as well. Please email them to me at cwlenagarrett@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support me in my journey to the truth, my Cash App is $Selena Bigfoot, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Hey everybody. Hey Selena.
Hey, how are you?
If I was any better, it wouldn't be legal.
I know it. It's rainy and dreary down here, but I can't stop smiling. Tex, I don't know if I've ever told you, me and Tex spent a lot of time on the phone trying to get my computer situated. To everybody in chat, thank you so much for being here. I love every one of you. You know I do. Anyways, when I first told about my sighting, August the 7th, 2024, Pat Garrett's name popped up, and I didn't know if I'd ever told you this, Tex, but Pat Garrett's name popped up on the chat. And I noticed that he was a very, very kind, very respectful. You can tell which ones are respectful and which ones are just there to be foolish. Anyways, and he was just so respectful. And him and his wife, Miss Mary is who I call her, they took a chance and ordered 24 cookies all the way from Iowa. Well, I want you to know, for 1 week till them cookies got there, I prayed over them things. And he said when they delivered them, not one cookie was broke. Not all the way from Alabama to Iowa. Not one cookie was broken. It took them 10 minutes to get into the cookies. I had them wrapped so good. So he already won my heart as a friend just because of that one little bit of faith he put in me just for that, Anyways, but Patrick Garrett is his name, and he lives in Iowa, and he is a military, just retired this past Friday, if I'm not mistaken. But Pat, come on out and tell us all about yourself.
Hey. I know you. You sent some extra cookies that I could take to work, and they never made it to work. The wife and I took care of them. They're pretty good. So yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So
thank you so much. I said I can't believe you're the only one out of state that ordered from me. So I'll never forget that. I thought that was so sweet.
Yeah.
Well, Pat, I know we was talking backstage. We were talking backstage, and you said this is the first podcast you've ever been on. But don't be surprised. Yes, don't be surprised if don't be surprised after this is over that you don't start getting invites to go elsewhere, because people love hearing these encounters. And I mean, let's face it, not everybody wants to get out there and share what they've seen and encounters, because sometimes you can take a beating for it. So I just want to say thanks for your bravery for one, and thank you for choosing Selena's channel to
do your first podcast.
Do your first one.
Thank you so much for that, Pat. Tex, you're right about that.
Yeah. Well, I have to be honest. I was thinking about it this week. I'm like, you're going on this, and if anybody sees it, they're gonna. But I talk about stuff at work all the time, so it's probably going to be no surprise. And anybody. But
we have
getting like some feedback, like a delayed audio. Is that on my end? Or
I'm not hearing anything.
I'm not either. You sound good to me.
All right. Well, I'll just get through it here then. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Pat Garrett, of course, lived in Iowa my whole life, except for the few years I was on active duty. Then I was at Fort Riley, Kansas, and then in Germany. And then spent about 27 years altogether in the military between active duty and reserve, National Guard stuff.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you for your service, brother.
Thank you. I just turned 60 back in September, and so they kicked me out. And so I had to retire from the military. And then a week ago Friday, I retired from my civilian job. So doing all right. But I spent, I have 3 MOSs. I was infantry when I was on active duty. And then in the National Guard, I was a combat engineer. And then I was out for about 12 years and re-enlisted when I was 44 to the reserves and got involved in the military intelligence world and wound up being they call it 35 Mike. It's a human intelligence collector. I did that for 16 years and learned a lot. It was a really good experience.
Yeah, I guarantee you, if and depending on what you can talk about, because I know you can't talk about everything,
right?
Because I was in the same boat, with your clearance and everything. There's stuff that you'll unfortunately take to the grave with you, but it makes for an interesting conversation when you start talking about somebody that held a clearance and especially involved in the intelligence side of things, which, and I know I was Army too, I dog face also, but I know most people think, Army intelligence, it's an oxymoron. Yeah. Well,
Yeah. 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 It's more like information though.
Yeah.
You're learning things, and then it's not really intelligence until you develop it into a product that you can brief to someone basically and put it out there to the rest of the community.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is the briefing is the most important thing.
Yeah, it is, especially if you're briefing a general officer. Yeah, it's it's important.
Yeah. Well, Matt, tell me, Tex, when we start labeling the shows and who's going to come on, what we do is we say, okay, they had a sighting, they heard things, they had things happen that didn't. So Tex is the one that labeled this one because we didn't quite know what to label it under. And y'all can see Ginger, she's having a ball in my lap. But so Tex labeled this one for me, and I thought he did a good job. High Strangeness.
I thought he hit the nail on the head with that. Yeah.
Yep. So you tell us about some of this High Strangeness.
Okay, so my first memories of anything like that going on was I was about probably 6 years old, and every Saturday we would go to New Boston, Illinois. I used to have a ferry down here. I live close to Oakville, Iowa, and it goes across the Mississippi to New Boston, Illinois. My mom's folks were from there, and so we'd go over there to visit her sisters and her dad, my grandpa. And one day he gave us these 4 little gray kittens to take home. They were weaned, and we lived on a farm, and so we took them home, and they're going to be barn cats, so we just had them outside, and went to bed that night. The next morning, I remember getting up and running outside to find the kittens, and they're all laying out in the yard with their heads tore off. Every one of them. Yeah.
Just their heads tore off?
Just their heads, and their bodies are laying there like something just popped them off and threw them to the side. Yeah.
Oh, and I'm so sorry. Let me cut in. 18 or older, please. If you're listening to the channel. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that was something that, always stayed with me. That's something I never could explain. It was just weird. But I remember it didn't really freak me out so much because we're always butchering chickens or livestock or something. So just kind of used to seeing that sort of thing. But that just stayed with me, my whole life so far.
Okay. So now how old were you when this happened?
I was about 6. It's one of my first memories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the place that this, where this happened, what was the layout? Was it a wooded area? Was it
our farm, we got, it was in the backyard, and then we have like a barn, and then there's about 13 acres of timber right to the south of it.
Okay.
And then 2 bluffs, basically, a little valley in between them. And then on the east side, there's a lot of cedar trees there. And so there's a lot of places for things to hide up there. So.
Did the family ever discuss what possibly would happen, or?
No, nope, never. I don't know. I remember my mom make me go in the house, and then that was about it. I don't know what ever happened.
Well, probably because to me, Pat, the first thing that would enter my mind, I don't know if it did Texas or not, or yours, but it would be what kind of animal would take the heads and tear the heads off of a creature without them going into the rest of the body and opening it or tearing it to shreds.
Yeah.
You just take the heads off of an animal.
The heads off and just kind of toss them off to the side. Yeah.
Right. So I'm sorry. That's what confused me, was like, wow. Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No,
It's
okay.
really interesting.
That's okay. My mom, dad, they were older. And because when I was born, my dad was 61 and my mom was 39, I believe. So they're pretty old, but yeah. But Mom would tell me stories about these big birds. She called them hawks, but they would come into the barn lot and take off my dad's feeder pigs. And they were like 15 to 20 pound pig. So they were pretty big birds. They just weren't red-tailed hawks. I don't know if they were like maybe immature bald eagles and they just didn't know really what they were. But, all kinds of things like that. And my mom, she was really into nature. I remember she'd always having us out walking through the timber and stuff. And one day it's in the fall, the corn is harvested, and we have a little pond to the south of us. And she made my brother and me stay up in the field, and she'd shuck a little corn into her hand from a ear of corn that was still laying there on the ground. As she walked down, there's a bunch of mallard ducks. They're wild ducks on this pond. And she'd just start quacking to them and talking to them. And those things would eat out of her hands. She was just that kind of a lady, almost kind of like a female Grizzly Adams almost. So she's the one that really got me into the outdoors and stuff. Because by the time I got old enough to do, run around, my dad was too old. But so that was like the first thing I remember.
Right.
And then I was, off in the military, later on, and not really, run around with friends and whatnot, not really paying attention to anything like that. And, later on, a little weird thing. I was out of the Army, and my buddy and me were hunting deer down by his dad's place, which is borders the Mississippi River. And we'd go under what we call the river timber, which is on the other side of the levee. And the Mississippi River's there, and we'd hunt there. And we were walking back to the levee, and we're talking, and we're walking a straight line. And we come out of the trees expecting to see the levee, and the river's there. That was so strange. And we had the same occurrence. We were out hunting in Colorado one year, something like that, just walking a straight line, thought it's a straight line, and bam, you're just right back where you started. I don't know. I listen to David Politis, watch his podcast a lot. And he comes, has some weird things like that. People.
I've always enjoyed David Politis. Yeah.
So I kind of got a list here. Really kind of some really strange stuff. Started, my wife and I got married in 2002, and one weekend the kids were gone, and so we like to sleep outside, if it was nice out, like the mid 60s or whatever, and we're just laying out in sleeping bags, just off to the east side of the house, and we hear the road ditches are always full of frogs. You hear frogs, crickets, everything. It's loud up there at night. Yeah. And all at once, just total silence. And I'm just sitting there like, what is going on? Then we hear something walking out by this old corn crib. I got a bunch of old barn roofing tin laying out there, and you hear the steps on that old tin just crunch, crunch, crunch. I'm like, what the world is it? My wife, she's a really a really hardcore Pentecostal lady, and she starts speaking in tongues right away, praying against that
It
thing.
must have really been
And
scary for her to do that.
oh yeah. Me, I'm just thinking, wow, that's pretty cool. I wonder what that is. I wish I had a flashlight, but yeah. And then all at once the frogs just started back up again, and the insects and everything. Yeah, and I just, I bring stuff like that up to her. She doesn't want to talk about it anymore.
Now, do you mind, Pat, telling everybody why she don't want to talk about it? You said she's very scientific because of her job.
Yeah, she's a nurse, and then she was a medical IT consultant for Dell Computers for about 5-6 years, traveling around the country, setting up hospitals on their own medical computer system and stuff. And yeah, she's a very smart lady. I always look at her and like, why did she marry me? Kind of like me. But yeah, so but she doesn't like that. But one thing I found out, that she had a UFO experience when she was a little girl, and I think maybe that kind of has affected her, and she doesn't want to talk about that. She only told this to me once, and she had some I think she was probably living in Muscatine, Iowa at the time. She's a little girl, and they're out there, her uncle's house, and her cousins, and they're out all playing outside, and her family, they have a little bonfire, and they're a musical family, so they'd always like to play instruments and sing. And they're looking out at this field, and they think it's a combine out there, because in the dark, combines, you got a lot of lights, and you see dust flying around, so they think it's a combine, but they realize it's not. It's not making any sound. And it's sitting out there in the field, and the next thing you know, her cousin that's in the house, she's probably like 6-7 years old, starts screaming. And so everybody runs in the house, and she was yelling that they were trying to get her. And there's actually small little muddy footprints on the stairs going up to her room.
Oh, wow.
Just ended there. Yeah. So I don't know if something else happened, and Mary just freaked out about stuff like that. She just will not talk about it.
And
I can't say as I blame her. I mean, we talk all the time. We talk all the time about people being traumatized by their experiences.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to be traumatized by something, I mean, that I think that would qualify for me. I mean, that would be to me. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff, but I believe I'd have an issue with that myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
You can't explain it. You're wondering how you sound to other people. Like when you tell people, you're wondering what they're thinking, which is
exactly.
Lost her mind. So I worry about what people think. Did you think, honestly, Pat, before you got on here talking to us, that wonder what these people are going to think about me? Here I have all this experience with the government and the military and top secret clearance and all this stuff, and yet I'm telling stories that's going to make them say, what in the world?
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about that earlier today when I was driving on my way to church this morning, thinking about that, and I'm like, oh well, I'm not backing out. I've already told you I was going to do it, so, and it's kind of an honor to be on your podcast, so yeah.
Quit. Y'all are so sweet. Thank you so much, Pat. You've been special as a friend.
And that's something that you run into with a lot of churches. I'll put it that way.
Yes.
And I never really understood it, but I am a God-fearing man. Okay, I am, and I mean, he's the one that protects me when I'm out in the field dealing with all this craziness. But what I don't understand is, and this doesn't matter what branch of religion you are, but a lot of times, sometimes and it comes down to the church itself, that particular church group, that a lot of times you're asked to believe in a supernatural being. Okay, that's what they want you to believe in. God is a supernatural being.
Yeah,
there's no argument there. But the problem is that's where it stops, because a lot of people that go to church, well, yeah, God exists, but nothing else supernatural does. Well, no, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
No, no.
Saying is we're supposed to have faith that something believes that we can't see, and
Right.
yet you can't believe in something a little larger than a gorilla. I don't know.
Yeah.
That you do see. Or UFO or UFOs or spirits or whatever that phenomenon is. And that's always bothered me, because if you can't, you're supposed to be able to go to, your clergy and be able to talk, but a lot of times you can't, because they're just going to say, oh, well, it's and unfortunately, a lot of them, the first thing they say is it's the work of the devil. Maybe not, but I will say, yeah, probably some of it is. Okay. But anyway, I'm sorry, Pat, go ahead. I didn't mean to take the microphone away from you.
That's fine. So I know, like Pentecostal preachers and some Catholic priests, they'll deal with the more supernatural aspects, and they believe.
Absolutely.
So, well, I'll tell you a story I've only told to a Catholic priest and a Catholic deacon. I've never told it to anybody else before, except my wife. It's 2006, and about that time, we're getting emails, and people are getting their emails set up and whatnot. And some guys from my old Army unit, when I was on active duty, we're in like what we call a cohort unit. It's kind of experimental, where you go to basic training in AIT together, and then you spend 3 years together on active duty, and then you go off, either re-enlist and go somewhere else or go home or whatever.
Right.
So guys started finding people's email addresses and stuff and getting a hold of people and somehow get a telephone, calling people and whatnot. So some guys got an idea to have an Army reunion, 2006. And one of the guys worked at I think it's Circus in Las Vegas, and he could get us a really good deal on the rooms. So, okay, we decided we're going to have our reunion in Las Vegas. And I've never had a desire to go to Las Vegas before. But I'm like, all right, I'm going to go see these guys. I haven't seen them, for, I don't know, what was it, we got out of 87. So, and this is 2006. I hadn't seen any of these guys for that many years. And there are 35 of us that showed up to that thing. But I remember getting off arriving to Las Vegas, get off the plane, get to the hotel, check in. I'm so tired, I go up to my room. I'm going to lay down, take a nap. I'm beat. So I laid down for a couple hours. Now I woke up and I can't breathe and I can't move. And I'm like, what the heck? I could move my eyes and look around. And I looked up, and the corner of my room is this big black bat looking thing with these yellow eyes staring right at me. And I'm thinking, the first thing because I was a Pentecostal associate pastor in our church at that time. So I knew exactly what it was, but I just started pleading the blood of Jesus on me, help, and slowly able to get up and get out of that bed. But every joint in my body was on fire. It hurt. And I get over to the bathroom, start splashing some water on my face and stuff, and look, and the thing's finally gone. And I slowly just start feeling better. But I'm like, man, that was something. I never seen anything like that since. But like I said, I've only told it to 2 other people besides my wife. So
I could see why you would, first of all, only tell it to a couple people, because you go on this trip expecting something strange to be seen, to be the last thing that would happen. You're there and experience something that and this was the furthest thing from your mind. So I can see why you had a hard time even wanting to discuss this with anybody.
Thinking a place like Las Vegas, there's all kinds of spirits there, probably. So thankfully that's the only one I encountered, but that was enough,
That would be enough. That would definitely be.
So then coming back home and getting back here. I got a list of some bullet points that I jotted down. I told Tex I did today just so I wouldn't
Look, don't
forget
feel
some
bad.
things.
This is my list. You go ahead and read your list all you need.
Okay. Well, the next thing is Mary and me we like to take walks, and one night kids were back here house messing around, and we decided we're going to go for a nice walk down the road. And where we live, our closest neighbor is about a half mile away, and then we go on from there. So let's just take a nice walk. And it's getting dark, and I look up and I see this light, and I see this all the time, like a white light, looked like a star, but it's moving across the eastern sky. And then it gets close to another star that's just sitting there, right? And then it starts to move, and they're just parallel as they go. And I'm just kind of watching them as they go clear to the south, and I can't see them anymore. Don't say anything to Mary, because I'm like, yeah, she doesn't want to hear anything about this stuff. But I see that stuff all the time. And we're walking and have our dog with us, and he starts growling. I smell this skunk smell. He starts growling, and he goes down the road ditch. I'm like, oh, great. He's going to get sprayed by a skunk, and this is awesome. And then he comes back, and he doesn't smell like a skunk. And then I hear like this bird chirp, and I'm like, I'm out a lot at night, and I've never heard bird like this chirping at night. And that sound follows us as we're going down the road, and so is the smell. Every so often, the dog, he goes back down the road ditch and growls. He never barks or anything. He just starts growling. Then he comes back up to us, and we walk down about 2 miles to a pond that's alongside the road that a guy built years ago. Is kind of ahead of his time. He built this pond and stocked it with nice fish. He was going to have people pay to fish there, but nobody ever did. But yeah, that was when I was a kid. But we get out there, and there's a cornfield to the right of us as we go into the little entranceway to this pond. And that's when I smell the skunk smell, but then we start hearing more bird chirps and then foot stomps. And I mean, I've been hunting in the woods by myself since I was 11. So I know it's like when a deer's pawing, stomping. This was like big. And does it make sense if I say it was muffled? It wasn't a really sharp hit, to the ground. It was like there's some padding there when it was stomping the ground. And I don't have a flashlight. It was one of those things like, I don't need a flashlight. I can see good at night. So, but she's like, what the heck? And we just kind of start walking back, go across the road, start walking back home after that, because apparently something doesn't want us there. And I'm not saying what it is. I know what it is, but I know she didn't want to hear anything about this, And we go back the next night. We walk back down there the next night, and we don't smell any skunk smell, don't hear any chirps or anything. But we get out to that pond, and something is walking across that pond, 2 legs, bipedal, walking across there. And I know there's probably about, I don't know, it might be kind of shallow, maybe 3 or 4 feet deep, but I know there's at least a foot of mud, in the bottom of that thing. And you could just hear it wasn't a deer, deer just, you could tell if it was a cow. It was 2, like a person walking through there, but nobody's going to be walking like that. And nobody has legs that long, because you could hear them picking their feet up out of the water as they're walking. And it's pitch black out there. Again, I didn't think to bring a flashlight, but some just, it's just like, I don't need a light. But I've been listening to some of the Sasquatch Chronicles, and some of the people relating their experiences have that same feeling like they should take a picture of this or do this. And then they just like, nah, it's like something just.
I always say go with that first gut instinct.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. I talk about doing a lot of stuff, and I said, go with that first gut instinct.
But then again, it might be like your guardian angel kind of telling you,
yes,
don't do it, because if you light this thing up, something bad might happen. So I don't know, but
But we've heard also, Tex, I know you have, because we've discussed it. Also, that light will make them go away. They don't like the bright light, so
Yeah.
they dodge the bright light. So
Yeah.
if you're ever outside again, have a flashlight.
Oh yeah, I do. But yeah, it's like people have trail cameras everywhere. Why don't you get them on? Well, I think they see that IR
They do.
light at night off your trail cameras. They just avoid that. They can sense
do.
that. So.
Yeah, I don't, and we have the whole IR conversation a lot. If they can and everything. And it wasn't too long ago, a few years ago, everybody talked about them seeing IR like it was some kind of superpower, and it's not. I mean, it's just an ability that they have, and I mean, there's a lot of animals out there that have it.
Mm-hmm.
So
a lot of them.
But yeah, they'll avoid that like the plague.
People can see. I know the first time I saw a bobcat and a mountain lion, they looked red to me, like bright, like red. But that's just how my eyes perceive them, I think, because then they move out to the light and stuff. And then I could, I knew it. I could see what they were. They were brown or black and gray. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know. Sometimes your eyes play tricks on you, but sometimes I think your eyes will just, or your brain's just perceiving something a certain way,
Yeah.
And about the nursing thing with the science degree and all that kind of stuff, we've already discussed that on a show prior. And I'm telling you, nurses, they want to see if it exists, they want to see it.
Yeah.
In the medical field, so we completely understand. We had just gave an example. I think it was the last show or the one before that, how that a nurse did not want to believe that something was from the bottom of her bed up each side. And it was all Indians with long gray hair. They had passed on and they were all up in age and had white hair. And this nurse refused to talk about it. She said it one time and told me never to say another word to anybody.
Yeah. It's like my wife, she's had some experiences in the church and things. And it's like she'll talk about spiritual things, about demonic things. But if it comes to UFOs or Bigfoot or anything, no. And we've even seen something together one night. We were out watching, sitting on the tailgate of my truck. We're watching a meteor shower. And we see this light. It's going through the sky, and it just starts gathering speed, takes off like a rocket, but just right in the northern sky, and it just blasts out of there. And I look at her and I said, "What do you think that was?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know, but I hope it's ours." I'll bring stuff like that up to her.
There might be somebody else's.
Yeah. I bring stuff like that back up to her, kind of, well, what about this? And she's like, let's talk about it. Like,
we got a question.
Thank you, Ted, for reading for me. People knows I can't see good.
No problem. I got it. Riley Ron Ivy asked, "What's the scariest encounter you've ever had?" I mean, to me, I'm kind of thinking the whole bat thing in the corner of the room.
That's right. Or the stepdaughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that didn't really scare me. I just knew what it was, so I just dealt with it as I knew how. But I don't know. That kind of realm and like with the UFOs and stuff don't really bother me. But one time when I really felt fear, 2007, I went up to maybe my third trip to Alaska. I went to Juneau and I have a folding kayak by track. And so it's like an aircraft aluminum frame, and it's a nice cost. It's expensive, but it's nice, and you can bring, it's designed to be able to take with you on trips, fly with it and stuff. So I had all my gear in there and paddled out from Juneau to Admiralty Island, and it was about 20 miles across the ocean and stuff, and saw some cool stuff out there. But I camped out there by myself and had to find my own water. I brought food, but there's more grizzly bears on that island it's the densest population of brown bears anywhere in the world. Everybody thinks Kodiak Island. No, there's more on Admiralty Island. And one morning I'm laying in my tent, just kind of, wake up because it never really got dark there. And I'm just looking outside and this shadow passes by my tent. And I'm like, yeah, I got a little scared then, but then I'm like, you got to get a hold of yourself because panic kills.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that
of
probably
course,
kills more people than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You panic, lose your head, and then that's it. Then you might lose your head. But anyway,
exactly.
Yeah, so I just kind of waited several minutes before I unzipped the tent and went out. But there's grizzly bear crap like 20 feet behind my tent. And, then I'd see their prints in the sand every morning along the shore. But they never bothered me. And I keep my food like 100 yards and my garbage 100 yards from my tent down. And then I'd cook another 100 yards up. And then my tent's kind of in the middle. So there's nothing there for them to be interested in. But they never bothered my food or my garbage the whole time I was up there. But I got a kayak with a humpback whale one day. That was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
I saw him. He's about 100 yards ahead of me. And I thought, wow, I wonder if I could, you don't want to get too close. But and then he just disappears. And I'm like, where'd he go? And then I hear him 12 feet behind me. He comes up and blows. That was so cool. And he goes down and comes up about another 10 or 12 feet to the side. Then he goes underneath me, comes up on this side, and then he goes down. And then I just see him like maybe 50 yards out. He comes up, and then that was it. He just kind of, I think he heard my paddles in the water. Never heard that before. So he just kind of came up to check me out. But I'm like, how many farm boys can say they kayaked with a humpback whale in Alaska before?
Have you seen the video where that humpback swallows that kayaker?
Yeah.
I haven't.
Yeah, he comes up underneath his kayak and swallows him and then spits him out.
Yeah.
This is another Jonah, but including the kayak.
Yeah.
But now, I don't want to get off track. Tex had asked you what had to be the most horrifying thing you've ever been through. And a humpback whale couldn't have been that. So we're excited.
No. Then there's some other strange things. It was 2014, 2015 era. I was always finding, like, I found a couple deer carcasses, but their heads were like ripped off and thrown off to the side. And then that winter, I would find, because I always like to go for walks and stuff, and I'd find just a deer leg out in the middle of a field covered in snow, and the legs just laying out there, no tracks around it, like something just threw it out there. And then I found a deer carcass that was really fresh and still had meat on it where animals had been eating on it, but the head was laying off to the side. I'm like, coyotes don't rip heads off of deer and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, so I'm walking away from there, and I see this like leg bone, and the meat, everything was off the legs, like something just degloved it, just shut the flesh and everything off of it, and broke an end off of it, and there was no marrow in it. And I picked it up, and it's still kind of yellow because fresh bones out there have this yellow tinge to them.
We know
and there's no bite marks, no nothing on it, and it's just kind of laying there in front of this creek, like something just grabbed that bone, snapped it off, sucked the marrow off of it. That's what I imagine. Just dropped it and just kept on walking. But the ground was frozen, so there's no tracks or anything out there. But the thing was, I walked up there to that area because I started having problems with my knees, so I couldn't do a lot of walking like I used to. Then wound up getting both of them replaced a few years ago. Right. So year before last, I went for a big walk and went back to that spot. And over the years, and this is a really brushy area. It's, about 1.5 miles away from the gravel road. There was 3, you could tell the bones, the remains of 3 deer there in this spot. I'm like, why would something be killing it and bringing it back to that same spot year after year. And the first one had moss and stuff growing on the skull, and you could see it's kind of degraded. It's the oldest one, probably the one that I saw that day. Then a couple others that were there, but it's like the leg bones, like the front leg bones, like when were broken, like snapped. Like I don't know if something grabbed him, but so I brought him home with me, 3 of them anyway, and they're just kind of like, I don't know if you see that, just kind of.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Off like that.
They broke it like you would have. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's okay, Mom. It's just stretching your legs.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's how they grabbed it and broke its leg to disable it or something, but
Well, even if, you know, maybe even if they didn't do it,
yeah.
They may have done it just like you were saying, it sucked the marrow out of the bone.
Yeah.
And that's the most nutritious thing that,
Exactly.
well, one of them that you've got. So why a lot of times you'll find the liver missing.
Yeah. There's a lot of nutrients in that liver. Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah.
God.
Yeah. So it's just, stuff like that. And I was looking around, and there's, like the tops of the trees are like people around here call them hedge trees because they have those green hedge balls on them, but they're like Osage orange, and they're tough. Right. They will dull your chainsaw blades quick, but the tops are kind of broken or bent over. It's not from the snow because there's no leaves on to hold the snow in the wintertime. Just stuff like that up there. Just, I don't know if they're used like marking their area, saying this is, where I take the deer hat or whatever, but it's just, just odd stuff like that you see up there.
Yeah. And see, that's another thing. I don't know. And I don't think, I know there's people out there that claim to know, and maybe you do. I don't. But all these glyphs and all these tree, these tree structures and everything else that we find, I don't know what they mean. I don't know what they're saying. It's just like doing a call. You don't know what you're saying to these critters.
Right.
Like
nobody does.
Well, it's like I was on a show the other night, and I'm like, and we were talking about it. I said, you might say something, end up with a prom date you don't want. I'm just saying. So
you might be saying, "Come to my house for supper."
Or
then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Be in trouble. But oh my gosh, Pat, what I'm wanting to hear. I want to hear about the stepdaughter and what happened to the stepdaughter.
Yeah, I was just getting to that. That's next on my list. All right, so there for several years, my oldest stepdaughter, and I'm not going to say her name just in case she doesn't, but she lived with us with her daughter, and she worked like in the evenings at the same. She was a outside contractor, custodial service for the company that I worked for. So I'd get home in the evening and she'd be getting ready to go to work, so to the same place I just came from. But one night she come home and she'd always sit outside and on the doorstep and smoke a cigarette before she'd go to bed. She had the dog. He's kind of like a black lab looking dog, and his name was Ben. And she'd always talk to him like baby talk, like you do with Ginger and whatnot. And one night she's out there, she comes running in the house. She's like, I don't know what you got out here, but I'm talking to Ben, and something up there in those hills is repeating everything back to me. Just sounds just like, just mimicked her. I think that happened to her twice, and then she kind of stopped going out there at night. Yeah.
I've seen people say they have things repeating what they're saying, and they sound actually just like if I said, it's so nice to have you, Pat, they would be in the background saying, it's so nice to have you, Pat.
Yeah.
And there's no way echo. That would scare me so bad.
Yeah. Yep. And then it's probably, I don't know, maybe a month later, she's driving home from work, and she come in, there's an old church a couple miles up the road from our house, and I'm on a team. We're slowly trying to get it renovated, and she says she's driving past this church, and down in the road ditch is this big hairy thing just standing there. And it looks at her, she's driving by, and it kind of just like hunched its shoulders like that. And she said, that road ditch is like 5 feet deep. And she said that thing was still taller than her car as she drove by it. And she just hit the gas and kept going. Said just another time just scared her to death.
It does. It puts you in a shock. It just does.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I said, well, it sounds like, she's telling me about it. I'm like, well, that sounds like a Bigfoot to me. She's like, no, it couldn't have been. It couldn't have been. It's got to be. I'm like, like I told you the other night, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck, Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, Bigfoot ain't real.
That's what people are saying. And I'm saying, just wait.
Yeah.
A feller kept messaging me, and I mean, it was several. It wasn't just one or two. It was several, repetitive, and it's like they couldn't let the conversation go. But I wasn't about to be the one that was rude, so I would keep on talking, and I let them tell me exactly how they feel. And I said, just wait, just give it just enough time, because what I'm seeing fixing to come is they're going to have no other choice but to announce it. They have the DNA, they have the hair, they have the blood, they have they have the infrared, they have the video. It's just a matter of a Bigfoot nail walking up saying, "Let me shake your hand. My name is so-and-so."
Yeah.
That's the only thing missing. And yet people are still saying there's no such thing as Bigfoots. So I just keep telling them, just give it a little time. That's all I ask you. And that's how I ended the conversation.
I've got David Paulides' book, The Hoopa Project, and he goes into a lot of where they got like 110 DNA samples. And how they did that, they take double-sided tape. They put like apples or something up in the trees, and they put double-sided tape all around it, so then they'd get hair samples from it. And of course, they sent that stuff to Melba Ketchum, and she tested it. And what they say is all like human female and unknown male. And she published those results and just about, lost her business over that.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
because everybody involved in that project threw her under the bus.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
But I always pull her out from under the bus. If you'll watch anything I write or any paragraphs that I put my input on, I'm pulling her out from under the bus because I think she's a very intelligent female, and I really respect her. So
Well, she's a Texan. How bad can she be?
Right. What's that, Tex?
I said she's a Texan gal. How bad can she be?
Yeah, exactly. She's tough. Texan gals are tough.
That's right. So I really enjoy hearing her. And I also, a lot of people may not enjoy it, but I enjoy watching Expedition Bigfoot because you've got a military person on there. You've got a wilderness expert. You've got Dr. Maria Mayer, which I love to listen to and watch her collect DNA. She's so meticulous when she collects DNA. So that's very important to me because I know they can't holler, it's been contaminated with your DNA. So she's real meticulous. And so that's the thing I enjoyed the most about that. But this past Sunday, y'all should have seen that episode this past Sunday. Did you go back and watch it, Pat?
Yeah. Yep.
They caught that Bigfoot turning his trail cam. They caught the Bigfoot taking its hand and just shoving it. And of course they caught its hand and everything, the hair and everything, as it took and shoved the camera. And then right at the end of the show, there was 3. I say 2 because I couldn't see good, but I did see the 2, and they caught just the prettiest film footage of that. And they were way down into some wilderness and zoomed in and caught them walking behind some trees. And there was no way, y'all, just no way that humans would have been in that area. There's just no way. It's like people telling me that humans would walk barefooted through a swamp with copperheads. I'm sorry, I don't believe all that. I just don't.
No. Or, out in the middle of nowhere in the snow, walking barefoot in the snow. Yeah, without leaving blood, having bloody feet, leaving bloody footprints behind them. Yeah.
It's almost comical, but we'll let them sit there and buck us because one of these days people are going to say, "Oh my gosh, all these people's been trying to tell us for years," and we're just going to sit there and say, "You're right, you're right."
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to believe, but people's got to believe it one
Yeah.
day.
Well, and it's like Selena, you were saying, one of these days it's going to happen. Give it time.
Yeah. And
You
I
know,
feel it's coming.
they're
Well,
either they're going to be confronted with. What's weird is you got the government saying a lot of this stuff, but a lot of people, man, their decisions hinge so much on what an authoritative figure tells them.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
hey, it's okay to believe in UFOs now. I mean, they've kind of
Yeah.
came off of it, then they crawfish and they'll come back on it,
Mhm.
But the stigma of seeing something weird in the sky is not like it was.
Okay.
You know.
It's fixed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we'll get there with. I think we're a little bit better as far as the Bigfoot thing goes because of how widespread the topic is and the phenomenon, but we're not quite there yet.
Oh, can I tell you about another UFO thing I've seen?
Absolutely.
I've never heard anybody else talk about before. I think it was just not too long after I got back from my guard unit was activated for Desert Storms. We came back in July, and there was, I think it was like the tail end of a meteor shower. So I was outside trying to, watch them, and I'm looking up to the east, and all this stuff seems to happen towards the east, it seems like. But there's another white light. He's up above the tree line, going across the sky, just kind of nice and slow, like they had a satellite, you just no. And then this white shaft of light shoots up, hits it, and that thing turns red, and then just starts like going back and forth, kind of like reminded me of a dead leaf falling from a tree, and then it starts going back the way it came, but it keeps going lower and lower. So I don't know how far away that was, but I don't know if we shot one of these things down, but then I've seen footage from NASA. I think it's back when we had space shuttle, some footage of that, and they're looking at the Earth. And there's one of these things going across the face of the Earth, and there's a shaft like light that comes up, misses it that time, but then that thing turns around and goes back to where it came. So I think, they hit it this time, and they must have, I bet they recovered it, whatever it was. Yeah, but I've never seen anything like that since, and I've never heard anybody ever say they've seen anything like that.
Well,
that's crazy.
Sorry, Tex.
Wow. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've never seen anything other before and after the thing I seen last January. It was Sunday morning, a little after 3 a.m. And I'm, of course, the only one up on my road. I actually looked to see if anybody else had living room lights on or anything. Nobody else was up because I was fixing to holler, "Did you see that?" But somebody was commenting and they said, "It's a drone. It's probably a drone."
Right.
Said, what's so funny is something so trying to punch out of this drone. Like you can see this thing trying to just punch out of this drone. It's like something's trying to punch out of each side of it. And I was like, no, that's not a drone. But I let them give their opinion because I do honor their opinion. I honor everybody's opinion, whether it's something I agree with or something I don't. I still want them to give their opinions. And of course, I respect that. But it was not a drone. Lord knows I've seen plenty of drones.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, I have a story that an elderly lady told me about a really neat experience she had back in the mid 60s. She lived up north. She lived in Iowa, but it's just a few miles south of the Minnesota border, and her job was in Minnesota, so she drove up there every morning. She was a cook in a nursing home, probably a large nursing home, and she's on her way to work, and she sees this big orange light come down at her. It's still dark, she's heading to work, and there's a car in front of her, and this orange light comes close by, And it's like, she said, it's almost like it had like a force field around it because it knocked the car in front of her off the side of the road. And then it just kind of hovered there, and she watched it as she drove on by, and she got to work and told everybody what she saw. And so she goes in the kitchen, start doing her job. And she said, the maintenance guy said, hey, you need to come out and see this, because whatever you saw is hovering above our parking lot. And she said the thing is like a big disc, but it's tall also, thick. And it's hovering out there. She said it's bigger than their parking lot. She said their parking lot was pretty big. And it's sitting up there. She said it's so close, they had like windows across it, and she could see people or shapes standing there looking at her. And she's like, like that, those gray aliens they talk about, like that with their heads, only their eyes were round, not the almond shape, but they're just staring right at her. And she's like, she watched it for about 10 minutes and he was just sitting there. And then she's like, well, I got to go back to work, or these people aren't going to get their breakfast this morning. So,
that would be the first time I've ever heard of round eyes instead of almond. Have you heard of round eyes?
Yep. And then the maintenance guy said it just took off, just shot off out of there. And she comes home that night and tells her husband about it. And he's like, oh, you can't say anything to anybody. They're going to think we're crazy. She said, well, I know what I saw. So the next day she calls the local newspaper and tells them about it. And they publish it at her little account there. And they had other people call them and tell them. And one of them, that guy, the car that got knocked off the road in front of her, was actually a doctor heading into the hospital to work. And he admitted to seeing it. Yeah.
That's where that reputable report comes in from.
Exactly. Yeah.
We got through saying,
Yep.
if you don't have a PhD, nobody's going to believe you these days.
But she was in her mid 80s and she was telling me this, and she's just, that made such a big impression on her. She remembered all these little details, all these years, like 50 years.
Right. So somebody asked, it's a good question. With your military intelligence background, did y'all ever discuss things like the Roswell, anything like that?
Oh, no.
No?
No, you work in a skiff there, and you're pretty much on task on what you're supposed to do. And it's all compartmented. We have TS, top secret, SCI, special compartmented intelligence. And like, I'd say one time I was on a mission for the Transportation Command, Transcom. And so we were dedicated to that. And we're on what they call the JWIC system. We call it the high side. That's, you have to have that top secret SCI clearance to even get credentials to log on to these programs. And some of the programs we used were CIA programs, and their names are even classified. So I can't even talk about that. But no, we don't really go into that. And there's there might be other programs that would track that,
right.
But you have to have a need to know that and get authorization to get credentials so you can access those programs.
Right.
If you don't need to know it for your job, then you're not gonna see anything.
I didn't know if anybody, if y'all had any like side conversations, or anything like that. Because a lot of times, that's according to other people. That's how these leaks come in, and all that.
Conversations with some other friends of mine offline, away from the job, away from the skiff. Right. But you're in that environment. It's all business. You don't.
Yeah, they don't have a sense of humor.
Maybe ball games or something, but you're not.
Yeah, they don't have a sense of humor. That's right.
Yep. You do everything about Bigfoot or UFOs out in your car. You don't bring that in.
Well, it's like up in Canada, you have Sasquatch Prudential Park. Okay, that's what it's called.
Yeah. And
when they asked the Canadian government why they named it that, if these creatures didn't exist, they said, "Oh, it was a joke." I'm sorry. There's not a government that I had any part of that had any kind of sense of humor like that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a question that's on my mind. Everybody pay very close attention to Pat's face, because this is when we'll see why he had a top secret clearance. See if you can read any kind of facial expressions when I make this comment. Zoom in, text. Zoom in to Pat's face. Anyways,
Yeah, you're no pressure, Pat.
no pressure at all. Anyways, what I
Good
was going to
gosh.
say was, I heard that there was in Afghanistan, unless I have my country wrong, which is very possible, y'all. But anyways, I heard that in Afghanistan that the Bigfoots, male Bigfoots, was coming into the city, and that the male Bigfoots was taking females from the city, from that town, and that it got so bad that they had to call in the military, our military, to go and round them up, and that they rounded them up to about 800. That's what they said. And that they had 800 that they had a count of, and that they were up, looking down on them. And they, of course, like I said, that's how they got such an accurate head count on these things. And that they were told to, now look at his face, y'all. That's good right there. He ain't making not one face. But anyways, my point is this: if women were being taken by male Bigfoots from the town in Afghanistan, well, how would they handle it, do you think?
That was true. I know they wouldn't talk about it, and there'd probably be a lot of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, making people sign.
Good,
And
because
then,
that was next. That was the next
and
part.
oh yeah,
They
well I've
they
signed
would
those
get in the
before, and
van,
they
sign NDAs.
they threaten you with going to prison for 90 years. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, oh
That was
yeah,
the next thing, was
yeah.
they made him get
So
into a white van, and everybody sat down, and he
mm,
stepped in there and said, these come from so and so. I forget the name of it. They come from high up, and you're to read them and you're to sign them, and
yeah,
this this and this and this, and your broke leg come from this
yeah,
happening. Uh, what do y'all call it? Getting hurt during World War?
Training incident.
Yes,
oh
something like
yeah.
that. I mean, but
Line of duty, LOD, we call it. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
so that's what I was
yeah,
just going to ask you to see your face.
yeah.
When
Well, you get into that also, and you know that like your higher ranking officers and your NCOs have been in a while, they're looking at pensions and stuff. They
Yep.
don't want anything to do with this. It's going to affect their retirement because that's what they're working towards. And then your younger enlisted, they'll be scared to death. They're not going to do anything, to jeopardize it. They're not going to talk unless, they get home and have a few beers, but then who's going to believe them?
Yep.
Okay,
And
Paulette,
yeah,
this is a very important question also. Okay, once you are retired, what would happen to you if you come out and said something about signing an NDA on an episode or incident with a Bigfoot? What would happen to
well,
you
if I
right now?
talked about stuff that was in that NDA that I'd signed, oh yeah, that never goes away.
Nope.
My point is,
So
what would happen to
until
you?
you die, well,
Depends
they
what the
told they
NDA
could
says.
put you in Leavenworth, take away your retirement. You're going to go to jail for 90 years, but at my age, I'm 60, so I die there.
There
Yeah,
you
just
go,
play
people.
around.
There you go. That's all I'm saying is, there you go. There's your reason why that even civilians and military wants to hold things like this to themselves, because you just heard what happens to you. You lose everything that you worked really hard to maintain and to work really hard to have, as far
Yep.
as the setup for your future. Pat would lose everything he's got if he was to, let any of that come out. And so that's just a small example of how one word, if he says it just right, he could lose everything he's got. And so people are very, very hard on Jeff Meldrum, And
Oh,
I
yeah.
keep telling them, you can judge Jeff Meldrum all you want to, but you need to remember, you're not being threatened to lose your position, your tenure, and everything you've worked for. They could yank everything he's worked for away from him unless he puts things a certain way. But if you will listen closely to Dr. Jeff Meldrum, he never, ever says there's no such thing as Bigfoot. He
Or they
actually
could,
is.
Hmm?
He actually
or,
says,
government has an unlimited supply of money and lawyers. So even if, you tried to fight something like that, they would bankrupt you and you'd be on the streets in no time.
there you go.
Yep.
Thank you, Pat. Because see, we need to know stuff like that. We needed to know that there's more than just one reason why people hold these things so close to the vest.
Oh, yeah.
We appreciate you being honest with us about it.
You get
Get Epsteined.
you get you get Epstein, yeah. A couple guys in suits and badges, and telling you to shut your mouth or else. That used to freak my like the office manager at work, because every 5 years I'd have to have my clearance renewed, so I'd have to go through like a 2 or 3 hour interview. Then they'd go around, talk to my neighbors, then they go to my job. And they'd want to see my employee file and talk to 2 guys I work with and a couple supervisors I work with.
Yep.
To see if I've ever, talked about anything I shouldn't be talking about, or if I have a drinking problem or I do drugs or anything like that. Yes.
Yeah. I remember the first time I ever got, I went through the clearance stuff. And the FBI goes to calling your friends and stuff, and they're like, "Why am I getting a call from the FBI about you? What's going on?"
Yep.
They're real peculiar about their questioning.
Yep.
But they have to be. I mean, let's be honest. They look at and I'm probably telling all the FBI secrets on this situation, but I'm telling you, I've known people, y'all, and what they do, the FBI even checks your bank account because they want to know at any point in your career as a part of the FBI, could you be tempted at all to take a bribe and give information to another country? You know what I mean? So they are so meticulous, even looking at your bank accounts. So, like I said, I know this is not Bigfoot related, but it is saying that's why even the military are holding it so close to their vest. And that's why that, they're very, very, and nurses and doctors and things like that, they're very careful about not coming out and just blurting things out because they'll lose everything they've worked so hard for.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Once you break that trust, you'll never work in that field again.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I just had to ask him that question, and I know it put you on the spot, Pat, but I mean it with all due respect, because I knew if there's a man going to give a decent answer, it'd be you. And what time is it? Oh, good. We've been talking over an hour. We've had a good show.
Oh, yeah, we have.
Is there anything else that you would like to tell? Excuse me, that you would like to share with the people in chat that's watching our show right now before we end our show? Is there anything that maybe you think they need to know, or one last story?
Any more stories? I will say that go out and live your life and look up. You'll see stuff almost every night. And it's weird for me because I just get this feeling. I don't know, it's like a vibration, but I just got a feeling in my chest, and I can look outside and sure enough, I'll see something. Yeah.
It's hungry.
And they're not satellites when they change direction or speed up. So, yeah. But I will say I got to see a Bigfoot one time. I know I've been close to them, smelled them and heard them, but every time I'm up in the deer stand, I always keep thinking, well, am I going to see one today? Never know what's going to come through that timber. So, yeah.
Well, and the thing about it is, you're looking for them. So it's very possible that you might see one.
Yeah. You know? Yep.
Somebody once,
Be
well,
observant.
actually, several said, you usually don't have to look for them. They find you. But I'll be honest with you. Like I said, I know that they're not on every block, in every city, in every town, on your street. That's not what I mean. I just mean that they are multiplying to me a lot quicker and a lot more than
Yeah.
they have ever been before. In other words, their families are growing and they're traveling and spreading out. And
Yeah.
you're having more sightings and more people are seeing them. So, but
And
your daughter's story, I'll be honest, the two that I enjoyed the most out of all your stories was what happened to your daughter, stepdaughter, and then what happened to you at the hotel. That would have scared me to pieces. Phew. If I'd have seen something up in the corner of my room.
Oh yeah.
Goodness gracious. But we sure, Pat, it meant a lot to us that you come on. And I respect every guest I have, and I respect you and the career you've had and the service and the exhaustiveness and the dangerous situations that you've been in just to protect our freedom. Thank you so much for coming on and being with us.
Oh, I loved it. It was kind of cool. I'd go to Fort Sheridan, and it was a 4.5 hour drive for me every month to go to my drill, but I'd be in programs like that are so classified you can't even talk about their names, and seeing all this stuff. And then the next day I'd come home, then go back and be welding stuff at my job or working on some big equipment and stuff, just something that's so, very low tech. And it's just kind of neat, kind of having a foot in both worlds.
Yeah.
And the guys at work asked me questions about stuff. I can't really say anything.
That means he's good at his job, people. That means that he was faithful and loyal to his country, and he's patriotic. And we love that about you, Pat. Please give Miss Mary our love, and thank you so much for always being an awesome friend and for sacrificing the time that you have for coming on here and then for keeping us safe in the past.
I just want to thank you, Selena, for being a friend and inviting me on here. And thanks to Tex for setting all this stuff up. And
he is awesome.
Talking to us. It's been really good.
My pleasure.
Podcast has been a good experience.
It's been great meeting you, Pat. You're a hell of a guy.
Yep. Maybe we'll meet in person sometime. Yeah.
Okay, well, listen, anytime we have a show, just always let me know if you want to jump on because we'll be glad to have you.
All right. Well, I'll text you if I have any other experience. I'll text you and let you know.
Please do that. And of course, anybody I've had in my past on my shows, also let me know if you've had any new experiences or if you want to come back for part 2. There's several of you that needs to come back for part 2. And I already have quite a little schedule started. So we're good through April the 13th, 16th or something already. So anyways, thank you so much, Pat, for coming. We love you, brother. Bye. I love everybody so much.
See y'all later.
Thank you for coming and watching Southern Belle Bigfoot.